Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So we will be shortly starting, and now we're asking all the devotees to have a seat and wait patiently. At now, a little bit later, all the glorious Vaishnavas will start the Katha. Харе Кришна, дорогие преданные, скоро начнется Катха. Пожалуйста, занимайте места и, пожалуйста, немного подождите. Харе Кришна.
У меня в сумке. Сейчас.
Hare Krishna, everybody. Can we please take our seats? We'll begin shortly.
अच्छा ये वीडियो कैमरा वाला तो सब ब्लॉक कर देछे অত ক্যামেরা वाला है कोने 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 जा साइड है मिडिल रखा ना यू कम हियर इट्स टू मेनी कैमरा ब्लॉकिंग एवरीबॉडी शुभेक्षण प्रभु इज हियर वो कद्दूर So 5 minutes you can do little kirtan when they come at a time we start or
Maybe start now, as you like. You can do a little more kirtan as you like.
Nadu Gopal is here Sri Hari তোমরা একটু মঙ্গলাচরণ করে কীর্তন করো অফিশিয়ালি স্টার্ট করো ওরা গাইছিল কিন্তু এখানে বললে ভালো হয় না মঙ্গলাচরণ করে हाँ डाको तुम्हें आसो मृदंग करताल कोथाय हाँ नहीं चले गेलो नहीं आसो वो जन्मदिवस पंकज अपन बस जन्मदिवस पंकज নিতে গেছে সবাই লেট আসে আমাদের বাঙালিদের হয়েছিল ওরা এরা তো আগে এসে গেছে বাঙালি ভক্তরা তো 12টার সময় এসেছিল प्रसाद समय Please everybody sit down so that we'll start. उठे नाडु गोपाल प्रभु will chant little Mangala Charan and little short kirtan. Then we'll hear from different personality. Pancharatana Prabhu here, Narasar Prabhu here, Janivas Pankajangi Prabhu, they're on their way. So we'll hear about the early days of Mayapur. Haribol. तो मंगलाचरण करे तो स्टार्टिंग करे that. Sri Hari please come. आर के मृदंग बजावे करताल बजावे. So we'll have invocation kirtan by Nadu Gopal Prabhu and his team. क्लासेर समय की देखा जाए ना क्लासेर परे देखा क्लासेर मध्य मध्य क्लास चलते चलते हरे कृष्ण अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामीति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी
पश्चात्यदेशतारिणे वंशाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानं पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Everyone please chant. Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna
Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jai Jagannath Jai Jagannath Jai Jagannath Jai Jagannath
Jai Jagannath Jai Jagannath Swami Jai Jagannath
Jai Baladev Jai Subhadra Jai Baladev Jai Subhadra
Jai Baladev Jai Subhadra Jai Baladev Jai Subhadra
Jai Jagannath Jai Jagannath Jai Jagannath Jai Jagannath
Jai Jagannath Jai Jagannath
Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Jai Jai Prabhupada Prabhupada Jai Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Prabhupada
Jai Gaura Deva Hariva Gaura Deva श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप धाम की जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा महारानी की शिल प्रभुपाद की अनंत गौरी वैष्णव वृंद की समवेत आनंदे
Hari Hari Bol Jai. Thank you so much, Nadu Gopal Prabhu. Nadu Gopal Prabhu also one of our senior citizen of Mayapur. How old you are when you came to Mayapur? He was 9 years old. Since then he is here. So, okay. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunnavadi Paschata Deshatarine. So first of all, I would like to thank all of you for coming here to Niladri Vihar. So this program today arranged by our Mayapur MCS, Mayapur Community Sevaks International Group. Actually, I had a desire since the beginning of the lockdown to have a gathering with the international devotees. And I'll tell you about this place. It's very special. Our Jagannath temple is very special. So this land belongs to devotees of Damodar Das. So they allowed me to build a small ashram here. So I chose this place because this place has double power, 2 in 1. You know, this is 2 in 1. I took birth in Jagannath Puri. 20 years I was there. But I worked in Navadip. So I was thinking which place I should choose to live. Live and live body also. So then I got inspiration from Jagannath. I always think that I took birth in Puri. I must committed some offense. Jagannath kicked me out of Puri. So why I am out of Puri now? So I got an idea, a place, the combination of Puri and Navadip, both. So this place is non-different from Puri and also part of Navadip. So in this way, this place you get double mercy, 2 in 1. Puri mercy, Navadip mercy, Sri Khetra and Navadip both also. So here we are here with very special personalities who are for many years there in Siddham Mayapur. I have been observing last 40 years, 45 years. So Mayapur is Audarya Dham, very merciful to give shelter to everybody. But only people that are attached to Mayapur, they can stay here. Otherwise, I have seen Mayapur is a place not to live very luxuriously. I have seen here people that come with big idea, big luxurious life, this, that, they cannot stay longer here. They go. But same time, many Western devotees, they're so attached to Mayapur. And Mayapur has become attached to them also. For 20 years, 30 years, they are staying here. I'll tell you, you are all very fortunate that this holy land, that you have made your life to stay in this holy land, Siddham Mayapur. This soil is very special soil in Mayapur. I have seen some of the youth forum boys, their parents are very much against them becoming devotee. Some or other, they bring them to Mayapur, then they go back, then they call me Maharaj. After coming back from Mayapur, my parents are chanting now, Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So, it's very special, you are all blessed. Of course, management is one thing. So many management will come and go. I know different people have different problems in management, but whoever doing management, there is very big task on their shoulder also. But in spite of that, I am very thankful to all of you that you have given up your previous lifestyle, your country and everything. During lockdown period, I have observed the security man used to come and tell me that how some of the Western devotees, because devotees are not allowed inside the temple, they would come and stand on the road and cry, now that we can't have your darshan. So this is the result of the power of the soil, Siddham Mayapur. So since last 7-8 months, I told once Shivakshan Prabhu, but we were having many Bengali devotee gatherings. So I thought once we should have one Western devotees, we should have international devotee gathering also. So Shivakshan Prabhu finally arranged it. Then last moment it came to our mind that we should hear the early days of Mayapur, how it was that time. The Prabhupada, one thing I always contemplate, Prabhupada told to ISKCON leaders that many of you must have heard, that I am giving you ISKCON, please what I give you maintain it. Yes, Prabhupada said like that, what I give you maintain it. But for Mayapur, he did not say what I gave you maintain it. I have heard he told Jayapataka Maharaj that you must develop it. The kingdom of God should be developed. Now we see what Prabhupada left Mayapur with and what it is right now. Prabhupada's desire manifesting, and you all are integral part of this development of Siddha Mayapur. Without all of your presence, Mayapur cannot be complete. Prabhupada's dream cannot be translated into reality. So we are very, very grateful. I will not take more time. Now Pankajangpur Janwas Prabhu will come also. Here we have with us Pancharatna Prabhu. You are all staying in different community, housing area. He is the founder of housing area, right? First house. He built that, nothing was there, was paddy field. First house he built there, very remote place. That time, now it is very demanding place. That is a very remote place. He is integral part of our community. And Satadhanya Prabhu, long time, he has given his sweat, his blood to develop this Mayapur Dham. And here Nareshwar Prabhu also. So he has so much attachment, whole family now engaged in service of Mayapur Dham. And I have spoken to some of Western devotees, how attached, even if they are not part of management, nothing to do, but they just like to stay in Mayapur. This is my goal. That's it. They are trying to become now Indian citizenship also. They are so attached to Mayapur Dham. And I am very fortunate that I grew up with the leadership of these three personalities. I have worked under each of them. With Nareshwar Prabhu, he understands who I am, how I work. So it is very pleasing to work with him. Pancharatna Prabhu for centennial, for long time I worked with him. And one day, as Satadhanya Prabhu's biggest chela, his follower, working under me, I was working under him. Any DM, anybody, he'll take me with him. So they have fostered me like their younger nephew. So I'm very grateful to all of them. So now let us hear from their lotus mouth the early days. In the meantime, they are trying to put some projection here, the pictures of early days, so we can meditate on early days Mayapur. So we are broadcasting through Mayapur TV and through so many Facebooks. Thousands of people are watching. They're eagerly waiting to hear the early days of Mayapur. So I request to start with Pancharatna Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Microphone stand. Stand, can you give stand?
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Gurle Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Iti Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Prachanini Visesha Sanvati Pashchatate Shatani. Well, I'm not the earliest resident in this assembly. Shatadanya is number of years, although you probably don't remember this, Shatadanya, but we came to Mayapur together on the train in 1976. You were coming back from Japan, and you were going for the danda. Anyway, you were on. We went. I had just arrived in Calcutta, and then we went on the train together. My first train ride in West Bengal, but not the last. I was thinking about the early days in Mayapur. What were some of the main features? And I think the Krishna Nagar Shelter train for me, was one of the main features. As you all will remember, we had exactly one vehicle in Sri Mayapur ISKCON. And that was not much of a vehicle. It was an old army jeep. Maybe it was not actually army, but it was the same. It was a real jeep. It was not, some knockoff. It was the real thing. Perhaps none of you have even seen a jeep. It had no doors. It had some pieces of cloth that you could strap to the sides. Had a canvas roof. Had one seat for the driver and one seat next to it. And the back was just something you kind of would sit in. But it was the only vehicle, so naturally it was very much in demand by those who had some real need. So for the rest of us, it was the train. And the train is not much changed between then and now. So those of you who have taken the train from Krishnanagar to Shelda, you know what our life was like. I remember, because my first service in Mayapur was building, construction. And so, again, there were no hardware stores. There were practically no suppliers to speak of in this area. Even for cement. In those days, cement was controlled. You couldn't just go and say, hey, I want a few bags of cement. You had to go down to some office. You must have done that, Shadadanya. Levy cement. You had to go down to some government office in Calcutta. And, of course, wait and fill out forms and wait. Do something else and wait. And by the by, after some time, you might get your quota of cement. And then, of course, you had to get the cement. Stone chips were another hassle to save money. Well, there were two prices. When I first came, Jaipataka told me there's two rates: nighttime delivery and daytime delivery. So nighttime delivery means they would go and steal it from the sides of the roads where the road construction was going on, and then they deliver it. But the best possible price we got was by train from Patur. And so we booked train loads of stone chips, and Bhakti Truswami that was his first service with me, was to release the stone chips in Krishnanagar. So you can just imagine. Others will probably speak more about the scenery of Mayapur. For me, my recollections are mostly in terms of how apparently difficult it was, but yet it wasn't. I don't look back and think, oh, how difficult a time that was, because it was an adventure. It was a grand adventure. After construction, my next service was printing. And similarly, the technology was very, very basic. Nowadays, as anyone can print a book, they just take out their phone, practically speaking, and compose the book on their phone and send it off on the internet, and the next day they got a book. But it wasn't like those in those days. They didn't even have computers, typesetting. This was years later we got into that. Rather, the books were set by hand. No one of you have even seen this. Little pieces of type, little pieces of lead, anyone who's in publishing will know the term leading, because that's has to do with the spacing between lines, which has to do with the size of the lead. So they would set this by hand, and of course filled with mistakes. And this was our service, hanging out in Calcutta. One of the Jayapataka Maharaj, one of the first things he turned me on to was Raleigh Singh's, right? On a hot day in Calcutta, I remember walking from China Bazaar. I mean, us here, we all remember these places: China Bazaar, Ezra Street, all these familiar locations. Raleigh Singh's on Chaurangi is where I would go. He probably went to the original on Vivekananda Road, because that's where you'd buy. I mean, what to speak of stone chips? You couldn't even get fruit here in Mayapur. So, Jayapataka, when he would go up to Chitpur Road, where the big fruit markets were, and stock up on baskets. And fruit was, by the way, one of the opulences of our first days in Mayapur. When I first arrived here in Mayapur in 1976, I didn't plan to stay here, actually. I was managing a variety of services in New York City. We had just acquired the 55th Street Temple. My service was then basically managing the building. I was interim president while Madhuvisa was coming in. But when I arrived here, Bhanu Bhatta, and you must remember Bhanu Bhatta. He was the temple commander. So he met me and he relates this he doesn't relate me, but he relates the whole scene in that year 1976, because there was a big number of devotees were arriving, but there was very little facility. The Lotus building was complete, so there was rooms there, but they were so much reserved for Tamal Krishna Maharaj and his Radha Damodar party, and of course the Namahata. But everyone else, where were they going to stay? The long building wasn't complete, but the roof was there. Well, the roof of the ground floor, first floor was there. So, and the rooms that are now the shops on the boundary wall, they were built to accommodate devotees. And nowadays, anyway, so getting it all ready was extraordinary. So I was asked to help get. I said, well, I came early because I was supposed to go back to New York in time that there wouldn't be a gap between the other devotees coming and I could look after things. So he said, well, you're here, you could help out. And I said, yeah, sure. And within a week or so, he had loaded me up with so much service that Bhavananda arrived with Gargamuni, and they knew me from New York because they'd been there. And they said, now you have to stay. So we went to Srila Prabhupada. And I'll tell this story. I've told it probably many times, but I don't know. It's worth telling. Because it indicates something about the vision of Mayapur. And I was told by Subhekshana or Ram or somebody that maybe at the end we'll talk a little bit more about the vision of Sri Mayapur project. By the way, I'm still attached to that name, Sri Mayapur project. Right? I mean, that's what we called it. We called it the Sri Mayapur project. Now we don't use that anymore. Anyway, I think it's a good name. But the vision, when I went to see Srila Prabhupada, well, Madhuvisa arrived and he said, well, I can't really decide whether he could stay here or not. I need to consult with Srila Prabhupada because I'm just new in New York. And we went in there, and the first thing that Srila Prabhupada had been reading some or hearing some Indian news, and he was obviously very upset about this state of Kali Yuga India. You could see that, although I don't remember hearing the details. But he began telling us we can't expect the whole world to become Krishna conscious. We can't expect it. But at least there should be one ideal place. And by that I heard Sri Mayapur. The Sri Mayapur community, the Sri Mayapur project should be an ideal place. So I stayed here, and somehow or other, by the grace of Srila Prabhupada and Gauranga Mahaprabhu, I've been able to make this home. And now, going on, 46 years? And I pray to all of you who have also made this home. This is home, by the way. When I meet devotees coming from various countries, my greeting I choose is, welcome home. Because it's not just our home. Srila Prabhupada's vision was that this Sri Mayapur, ISKCON Sri Mayapur project, is a home for all his followers, all of the members of ISKCON, whether they live here year-round or they visit, this is home. And I pray that I can not only be connected with Sri Mayapur as my home in that spiritual way, but physically too. I can stay here. And but maybe not all the time. I'd still hanker for New York City. Little getting out there. Because that was the other spirit of Mayapur. Yes, it's home, but it's not, and it is, although I think others may speak about this, how one person, I think, complained that when Srila Prabhupada visited, he didn't stop at the yoga pit. Right? And some godbrother or someone complained he didn't stop at the Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Samadhi, but he didn't stop at the yoga pit, the Janmastan. And Srila Prabhupada's response was, yes, that is the Janmastan, but this is the Karmastan. This is where the work of service of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to broadcast this mission all over the world. So sometimes we have to go out and take the energy. Srila Prabhupada also spoke about that, how devotees should come here to Sri Mayapur Dham, recharge. Apparently, Bhakti Purushottam Maharaj has just told us that just the dust, just the earth of this land can recharge us, charge us up. And then we go out to share the holy names with everyone. So I've spoken enough to start off. Maybe I can say something later also, but I broke the ice. So Sharadanya, you can take. You ready? We. Hare Krishna.
Nothing personal. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
So your face, then close it.
Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nivishesha Sunyavari Paschatya Deshatadane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. in the Mayapur temple, behind Srila Prabhupada, just like during Guru Puj, the men's side, there's a painting of Mayapur, of the Lotus building. Has everyone seen that? You've seen it. That was the building in 1973. It wasn't complete yet. After the Mayapur Festival, 1973, I don't know how many devotees came, maybe not many, definitely less than 100. But then they all left, and the construction continued, but Prabhupada moved into the building after the Dol Purnima, on the second floor, his quarters you all know. And there was, when the dust cleared from the 1973 festival, there was 10 devotees, 10. And Prabhupada had told us that you should not fall below 10. But there was one devotee, I forget his name, only Jananivas would remember. He was a tall devotee. He was half Brazilian and half German. And he was the treasurer. And he used to be in great anxiety always. And he had a funny accent. And periodically he would say, "I don't do it. I don't do it anymore." Bo. Haribo. I'll just ask Jananivas his name. I'm curious myself. Jananivas, sit in the chair, man. Don't. Remember, I'm talking about 1973. The picture behind by the Vyasasan of the building, Prabhupada had already moved in, and we also moved into the building. I think you were not here yet, but you used to sleep on a mat behind the deities, wasn't it, downstairs? Remember, there was only 10 devotees. Remember the treasurer, a tall guy? He was half Brazilian and half German. Panchajanya, yeah. So Panchajanya used to always say that he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to do that service anymore. He used to say, "I don't do it. I don't do it anymore. I don't do it." It went on month after month. And then one day he decided to leave. And all of us preached to him that Prabhupada said we should not fall below 10. But we did. It became 9. 9 devotees. And the whole building was covered in bamboos, like you see in that picture. And Prabhupada was in his quarters. On the veranda, there was no jolly work. It was open. It was open. And one day, on the veranda, I remember being there. I don't remember who else was there, but Prabhupada came out of his room. He said, "I have built these verandas so I can walk." Those, is it 12-foot verandas? Huh? I think it's 12 or something like that. So I can walk. Then, after a few minutes, he said, "Be very careful. they may try to kidnap the millionaire. He's the millionaire. And as there was only 9 of us, and that open building, dacoits, you all know what dacoits are, right? I even forget the English, highwaymen or bandits. Every night, the dacoits were on the road or on different sides. They thought that, of course later we had incident, but they thought that Radharani was made of gold because it has a golden hue. So we got 2 shotguns. There was a devotee, Prabhas. He was half Punjabi and half Bengali. A very witty guy. Most of the sayings I got from him. And he was the license holder of the guns. In fact, one day, and me and him lived, Prabhupada, of course, when you come up the stairs, his rooms are on the right side of the stairs. And on the left side, maybe it was the second room, the first room, then the second room. I remember Prabhas and I stayed in that room. I don't remember if anyone else was in that room. There must have been. And just these kind of mats on the floor we would sleep on. One day Prabhupada would walk up and down periodically. Prabhupada came in and he told me that when you get up in the morning, you should always fold your bedding and put it up against the wall neatly. I always remembered that. But on this particular day, Prabhas was sleeping on the mat. Then Prabhupada came and said, "Who is that?" I said, "That's Prabhas, Srila Prabhupada." He said, "Wake him up." So I shook him, and he got up, and he saw Prabhupada. He paid obeisances. Then Prabhupada told him that, "Prabhas, you are the license holder. You should have bead bag in one hand and shotgun in the other." So shortly after that, we made a guard system. And we decided, I was a brahmachari at that time, and we decided that one devotee would stand guard with the shotgun all night. It wasn't the greatest wisdom of a decision, but that's what we decided. And as an incentive, whoever stood guard with the shotgun all night would get the whole evening Maha plate. There was a devotee here, Anakadundabi, big tall Englishman, and his wife, Brindavan Biharini, who was one of must be a cook from the Swarga, from heavenly planets. Even Prabhupada had commented, especially her cakes and desserts. So usually anyone that stood guard would share the Maha plate with the other devotees, except me. I would hide it, and I would only take it out. By 9:30, the place was dead. Everyone was asleep. And just me, the shotgun, and I would take out the Maha plate. And I tried my best to finish it, though it wasn't always possible. And I was so, I don't know what you call it. You become eating so much sweets and prasad, I was intoxicated. I would take it out about 9:30, and by about 10:30, before 11 o'clock, I was just falling asleep. And what the dacoits really would like was that shotgun. That would be the greatest thing for them to steal. I even remember, and this is true, walking on that first floor of the Lotus building with the shotgun and bumping into the wall. And hallucinating. I would look up by the front gate. We didn't have a front gate. There was a bamboo gate. And I don't know if I was hallucinating. I would see people. I would see dacoits. It was a very precarious situation. Then, shortly after that, Jayapataka Maharaj, with his great brain for organization, decided to make two teams, the Arjuna team and the Bhima team. And each devotee would stand guard for several hours with the gun. And, or by then, we put a gate on that first landing to lock off Prabhupada's floor. So in any eventuality, he would be safe. And since we discussed that the dacoits would want to steal the shotgun, in that bottom floor, which is now, I don't know what it is, some manager's office. Naru, what is that? The first room on the left when you come up the stairs. Yeah, some manager, general manager, whatever's office. We put one devotee, we put a grill on the window because there was no grills on all the other, there was no anything. And his name was Rasa Parayana. He was African American, about 6'3", very muscular, and he was a Kshatriya by nature. So we locked him in the room with the gun, and one night I heard and saw some figures in the field, and I went to wake him up, but he would sleep so soundly, he would never get up. So from the next day, what I did is I took a piece of rope and I tied it to his ankle and took it through the grill window. So if anything happens, I can pull him and get him to open the door with the gun. And anyway, subsequent to that, Jayapataka Maharaj made the two teams, Bhima and Arjuna, and we would take a couple hours or 2-3 hours or more each. So by then I was, of course, on the second floor, same floor as Prabhupada. And again, there was no jolly, no closure of the walls. And the next floor was totally a construction site, that third floor. And so on this particular night, I had the duty from something like 11, 12, 1, 2, like 11 to 2 in the morning. They used to call it like the graveyard shift. And because I knew that I would have to get up before 11 at night, I decided I would go to sleep earlier. So I went to sleep at like 7 p.m. And I told him not to disturb me, except there was one anxiety. At night, they serve milk and gur and moody. So I didn't want to miss that. But I had to go to sleep or I wouldn't be able to get up. So I told one other brahmachari that even though I'm sleeping, keep it at the foot of my mat, and then I'll get up a little early and eat there was milk and gur and muri. So on that night, I overslept a bit, and it was already 11 o'clock, and I looked at my watch. Remember, Prabhupada's in his room. And but then I saw all over my mat there was about 100,000 red ants. They had come to eat the gur. And it was unsolvable. I didn't know what to do, so I was doing something. And then I heard some noise in the veranda, and I got a little frightened, and I saw someone with a torch. And I thought, oh my God, it's a dacoy. What am I going to do? I'll be killed. I'll be everything. And the Prabhupada's there. And then the torch shone in my face, and I looked to the side. It was Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said that you're late for standing guard. I couldn't believe it. And then I tried to explain what was unexplainable about the gur and then Prabhupada walked away. Then I just quickly cleared the place, and within 5-10 minutes I was out on the veranda, and as I was walking down towards Prabhupada's room, I saw that Prabhupada was crouched, squatted on his knees with a torch, scanning the fields. He was actually filling in for my guard duty, which was pretty amazing. And then I went over to Prabhupada, I paid obeisances. I said, Prabhupada, I'm here, please. And I helped him up and escorted him to his room and assumed my guard duty. So Mayapur was like that. It was, for those who are in America, they call it the Wild West. And we had one chapakol, one tube well, outside the Lotus building, a little distance away, and an outhouse of bamboo halfway between where the gate is now and the Lotus building. So if you really had to go, you had to rush it up. And everyone would stand in line to bathe at the chapakol. It didn't matter your Jaya Pataka, your Bhavananda, whoever you were, sannyasi or not, you had to wait in line because in winter it was cold, but the water from the tube well was warm. So once you got under it, that was another challenge. No one wanted to come out of it. I'll just finish up with one of the first duties they gave me after shifting into the Lotus building. There was no electric power, or even if we had a connection, it never worked. So they put me in charge of the kerosene lanterns. And my job was to clean the kerosene lanterns, fill it with kerosene, and cut the wicks down to size, and hang them up in the different places, on the landing of the first floor, on Prabhupada's floor. But in Prabhupada's room, we had a special lantern called Aladdin's lamp. Remember that? Aladdin's lamp. It was a bigger one, and you pumped it up, and it made a big white light, a beautiful white light. And but I would have to hang all the kerosene lanterns on the different floors and keep them in shape. they knew my skill and acumen. So that's some stories of those days. And Hare Krishna.
We also didn't have gas. We'd have to cook on those same
Yeah.
kerosene or coal.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Satadanya Prabhu, for sharing so many very personal and interesting stories. So we have very great fortune to have so many of our senior devotees with us. So our twins, Jananivas Prabhu and Pankajangri Prabhu, are here with us. So they also have been in Mayapur from the very beginning of Mayapur's history. So we'll request them to share some of the early days experiences with all of us. Do you mind sitting next to Baba here?
No, I don't.
Like this?
Are there pictures in the show?
Hare Krishna. So before Prabhu start speaking, we should welcome them with one very big Haribol. Haribol! So you can do Jugal Bandi.
Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisi Shashanyavari Paschatya Adeshatane Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So the first Gopurnima, ISKCON Gopurnima, Mayapur was
Mike, a little closer.
we had our first ISKCON Gopurnima festival in 1972, March. And at that time only the Bhajan Kutir was existing. We had some tents for the devotees who were going to come for the Gopurnima. And we had a tarpaulin kitchen. And so I'll tell a couple of stories from the Bhajan Kutir time. Because we were all living together with Prabhupada. And so we would see him all the time because there was nothing else around. There was all, you could look across to the Ganga, you can see Navadvip town, you could look to the Jog pit, see the place, you can see Bhaktivinoda Thakur's place. Wherever you were, there was completely flat, only one or two trees, no buildings, no... one time, I was sitting next with Prabhupada in the Bhajan Kutir, and then one owl or baul, some from Upper Sampradaya came with a sadhu with his ekatara, his one string, tang 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 tang, and he come in. We just the embankment was there. There was no walls. We just made a little path, filled it up with a little bit of mud, so that was our path from the road to the to the property. And anyway, this Baul Dang 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 Om Jai Jagadish Hare Hari Om Jai Jagadish Hare Dang Dang Dang. And Prabhupada said, "You know that song?" I said, "Yes, Srila Prabhupada." I said, "I learned it when I was in Kashmir." He said, "Mayavadi, go and stop him." And I was just a brand new devotee and been living with the sadhu, following the sadhus, and now I got to go and tell the sadhu to stop him. He said, and I thought, well, I got to follow Prabhupada's instruction. But then I went but he just left, so I didn't have to ask him to stop. But Prabhupada actually said for the new temple, no one should wear longis. That means, well, longi what is a kind of casual wear in the home. You shouldn't come in longis in the new temple, and no atheists, and everybody must bow down when they come in, and no Mayavadis. And no Mayavadis should come in the temple. So, you want to do one, or I'll just speak?
Keep going.
Okay. So, talking of Kajur Gur, which is the season now, they tap the date trees and they get that make gur, that lovely taste. And so when Prabhupada came in 1972, and then Bhavananda approached Prabhupada and he said, Srila Prabhupada, he said, the devotees, they're taking this kajur ras. They tap the tree and they boil it, and you can drink it like that, sweet also. They're taking this kajur ras, this date juice, Srila Prabhupada. It's a very strong intoxicant. It's like a whiskey, and the devotees are taking it, Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, oh, really? So, we would have a darshan every morning, so the next morning we went for darshan, and there's one Dvijahari. Strong, I think he was a Marine or something, from South America. And so we were taking darshan, and Dvijahari says, Prabhupada, you know, me and the boys, we sometimes take a japa walk down the road, and when they're making this kajur ras, and we take some of this kajur ras, Prabhupada, it's really, really nice. It was funny the way he said it. It's like, me and the boys, we go down the road and down to the bar and knock a few back. It was like that. And Prabhupada was hearing, oh, really, really? Yes, Prabhupada, the devotees like it. So now Prabhupada, he heard the two sides. He had Bhavananda's side and the devotees. There were the management and the devotees. So the next day we went in for darshan, and Shruti Kirti came in with a glass of kajur ras. And he said, Srila Prabhupada, would you like some kajur ras? Oh, Prabhupada took it and he looked and smelled it. Every Bengali knows what it is, but anyway, it was like he didn't know. Smelled it, and then he took some. He started sipping. It's quite nice, he said. Shruti Kirti, bring me in another glass. This was his glass. So he bought an empty glass, and then Prabhupada poured his prasadi rasa into the other glass, and he said, here, now you give it to, and pass it around to all the devotees. Let them take him. Bhavananda sitting there, he's fuming. Couldn't get his way. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And another time, kajuras. The devotees had a new puri pressing machine. It was like 2 discs, and you get some moida and you make a little ball and you put a little handle on it and you just pull the handle and then it comes out flat, and then you throw it into the ghee or the, I think we had oil or ghee, into the oil and ghee, and then with that kajul ras, there's a stage before when it's not liquidy and it's not hard. Oh, it's really sweet and it's like chocolate. Gur, yeah, gur, kajul gur. So, and this was a new machine, this puri press. So it was like a novelty, and the devotees, we had a tent behind the bhajan kutir, which was a kitchen. And yeah, so you could hear everything because the bamboo, just that chetai wall is only split bamboo. You can see through it, you can hear through it and everything. And so Prabhupada was doing something. He was sitting down and maybe he was writing or something. And I was just sitting by his side, and we could hear all these sounds coming. Hey, give me another puri. Hey, throw one over here. Woo, woo. It's like every puri party, you know. And then, because it was really loud, we were right next to the kitchen. And Prabhupada he looked up and he was really concerned. He said, no. He said, they shouldn't take more than 2 puris. And then he went back again to his writing, and he was hearing all these sounds. Woo! Give me another one. Give me a throw puri here. Give me some more gore. And again, when Prabhupada, he was kind of tolerating it, and then all of a sudden he's kind of no, not more than 3. Not in my. And then after that, he went round the back because Jayapataka Maharaj was there, Gopal, Tadpur, and Prabhupada went round and he said to Jayapataka Maharaj, this is not for sannyasi. Sri Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Prabhupada ki jai. I used to clean the temple. I used to clean the guest house. Everyone thought I was the guest house manager, the temple commander. There was no guests at that time. Right? There was one room for the ladies. All the ladies lived together. There was no separate accommodation for husband and wife. That first accommodation for the husband and wife was when they made the what's now the Brahmachari ashram next to the Samadhi. They built that. A kitchen. It was a kitchen there, the big shulab. And then they were cooking that building, first building. And Prabhupada went to inspect. He said, so the grihastas, they can live here. And Bhagavan said, well, the rooms are quite small, Prabhupada. There's one room each. Not attached bathrooms. And he said, no, they're big enough. He said, well, what about the children? Prabhupada said, children? Children? There has to be children. So children means sickness, education, it's no problem. What? Sickness, so much time. As if they... So they weren't living together. They was all living in that what was now the conference room in the Lotus building on the first floor. That was... and if someone wanted to... one devotee wanted Anakadana, he said he's wanted to have a baby. His wife wanted to have a baby, so he told Prabhupada, my wife wants to have a child. He says, oh, sex life. He says, no, he wants to have a baby. Yeah, sex life. So he said, then you should go to Bombay. So they went to Bombay to conceive the child, and then came back to the... They would go to Navadvip. Sometimes Navadvip later on. They got a bit more liberal. It was
So everyone was living in that lotus building practically. And we had I was a ashram. I used to look after the boys. There were about 6 boys, Bengali boys at that time. And we had a room on the 3rd floor. And it was cold in the winter. We didn't have any, very poor that time. We didn't not much Lakshmi. You got to be a sannyasi or a pujari, you could survive, with the Mahaprasad and things like that. We slept on mats, as Prabhu said. This is straw mat. Or one blanket, it's like those red hospital blankets we had, just very thin. It was so cold, we said, myself and the boys, we used to put all our mats together, one on top of the other, then all huddled together and put all the blankets over all of us, and we would sleep in a big heap like that. And so one time Prabhupada was walking on that, he looked over the veranda, and on the sunshade there was a sugar cane. We would shoot a sugar cane and spit it overboard, but it would land on the veranda. And Prabhupada looked. He said, "What is this?" He was really strict about it. What is this? What is the message here? Who is responsible? They cannot live in this building. Who is doing that? Find out who is responsible. Then also when Prabhupada, there's 2 things he didn't like, 2 pet hates. They both come out at night time. One was mosquitoes and one was people that snore. Because that's when Prabhupada's doing his purports mainly at night. When whole world is sleeping, it's a good time for concentration. And so if anyone snored, they couldn't stay in the building. And there was no other place to stay. You had to find a tree, and then sometimes in the Vaishak season, just after Gaur Purnima, it gets very windy. These windstorms come. Prabhupada liked the windstorms. He would open both doors. He would be sitting on his seat, and the wind was blowing through, and his chadar would be flapping like that. And devotees said, "Prabhupada, we close the windows." I said, "No, nice." It would be howling through. He liked that. He said, Vaikuntha breezes. But and he used to criticize the devotees for not closing door properly. I don't know if Shatitanya told him, personal instruction, how Prabhupada said, go out. When you come in, it's very simple. You come in, you turn around, you close the door. Because we didn't. Just learn this art. Close the door. So in the summer we used to sleep with the doors open, and they had little blocks. You put a block inside the door, but devotees used to forget, or they opened the windows, they didn't put the latch on the window. Then the wind would suddenly come. These storms come really quick. Then pow, 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 the doors would slam. Prabhupada didn't like that at all. He said, "I'm writing my purports. I need peace and quiet." He said, "It's not easy. I'm taking all these tickets from the different acharyas, and then he's making his Bhaktivedanta purports." He said, and sometimes I'm trying to find the right word in English that will convey the meaning of the Sanskrit, because sometimes there's not equivalent words in English. So he said, and sometimes it takes me 3 days to find the right word which will convey the proper meaning. He says, so I need that concentration, meditation. He said, but when these doors crash, he says, it cracks my heart. Heart-cracking sounds. So he would do that. And Prabhupada would walk around, he would veranda chanting, and he would, if the latches were off the windows, he would put them back. You walk past and you get your pocket torn or something like that. And he was very concerned the lights were on in the day. If there was a light burning in the day, call the manager. Why is this light burning in the day? Why is this tap dripping? Wasting Krishna's energy. One time he was walking around, and out one room there was a fan running during the day, and Prabhupada tried the handle and it was locked. The door was locked. And then he called the manager. He said, "You see," he said, "there's no one inside this room." He said, "But the fan is running, wasting Krishna's energy." He said, in the West they are giving blood, distributing books. He said, they're working so hard, they're sending it to Mayapur, and you're simply squandering. He's demoniac. Demoniac. This person, he shouldn't be able to live in this building. Very strict like that, very frugal. So, when you go on a morning walk, we were living in the Pujari room, which is the other end where the Chaitanya exhibition is now. And we'd take a bath outside, there was a tap there. Then I would leave my gamcha over we had some bamboo fence, little bamboo fence there. And then I would take it in about 10 o'clock when it was dry. So Prabhupada would go for his morning walk, he would sit, and he stopped. He said, "You see this gamcha?" He's talking to all the managers. "It's been there for 4 days. And you don't notice these things." So he chastised him. "Why don't you notice these things?" So somebody took it, and I don't know where. I lost that gamcha. I couldn't claim it. But Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you. So we have a few more speakers. Then we also have a dance prepared by some of our Mayapur youth. And then we have lunch prasad. So obviously a sign of good management is that the lunch starts on time. So we're hoping we don't delay the lunch too much. It was supposed to be approximately around 1 o'clock. But nonetheless, we still have a couple of speakers. So we will request that you try to keep it short. We have Bhagavamrita Prabhu and Narashva Prabhu. And Pancharatna Prabhu's wife, Atita Gunamataji, she is here with us also. Both of them all-time residents in Mayapur. So we will request Narashva Prabhu now to speak.
Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Well, when I came to Mayapur in January or February '77, it was a little bit more developed than these Prabhus have mentioned. The Lotus building was finished, and devotees weren't living there except the sannyasis. And then if you went up the road, I don't think it was paved at that time, but the Bhajan Kutir was there, and opposite the Bhajan Kutir there was a go-down, cement go-down. It was this place where one would sit sometimes. And the wall was there, the boundary wall, and then you'd go to the kitchen. At that time now it's the Brahmachari ashram. There was a kitchen and a prasad pavilion was there. And the long building was still under construction. It was not completed. So it was very developed. And Goshala was there. And there was a building there which was built by Abhiram Prabhu. Three-story building, like that. Luxury apartment was down there. The first luxury apartment in Mayapur. The thing that was luxurious about it, because I lived there later on, not when I arrived, but later on, the luxurious thing about it was completely open to the south. And so the breezes were ecstatic there. And all marble at that time. We didn't find stuff like that in Mayapur in those days. Anyway, after about 3 days, Bhavananda made me the guest house manager. I think because I was the guest house manager in New York. I had been the guest house manager in New York. So he said, "Oh, you can be the guest house manager." And, the discussion about how it was hard for the devotees. Most of everyone didn't really get the same kind of treatment. Is that the right word? The same facilities. Everyone didn't have the same facilities. There's more than 10 people at that time, but not a huge amount of devotees. But everyone didn't get the same facility at that time. So somehow or other, we were encouraged by Bhavananda, and he said, "You can take prasad in the kitchen." There was a veranda around the kitchen, and they would take prasad there, hot like dawa, hot off the coals. You'd get the chapatis, and somehow or other, he allowed me that facility. And but it was strange because, I think Pankajangri mentioned that the facility for grihastas, I wasn't a grihasta, I was a brahmachari, but some of them lived, and the ladies also, they lived on top of the kitchen, on the top floor. There wasn't any bathrooms in that building, but outside there was this round bathroom. It was, Jayapataka Maharaj built it, but I mean it was hellish. It was hellish. You opened the door and...
Get the picture.
Huh?
Try another door.
Yeah, try another door, and just keep going around. It was. I didn't have to use that. I lived in the other building, but I'm just giving you trying to give you a feeling for what most of the devotees had to deal with at that time. Along the wall, there was some, what do you call that? Handloom. There were some handloom machines, and some of the Bengali devotees who knew how to do that, they would do handloom, make cloth. And actually, one time they were doing that, and Prabhupada was going by, and I think someone said, "Prabhupada, they're not chanting. It was early morning. Prabhupada, they're not chanting their rounds." And Prabhupada said, "That's their chanting." You remember that? That's their chanting, the making the handloom. Then if you carried on walking up to the main gate, which was already as it is now, there was a little sweet shop on the left-hand side as you faced out of the gate. And that was a interesting place. Devotees like to go there and try to sample the sweets, but they were supposed to be for sale. But I was the guest house manager, but there was no guests. I mean, the festival came up, and the building was full, but it was all Tamal Krishna Maharaj. What's his name? Kirtanananda Maharaj. He had his so the rooms were full of the big GBC man, and Hare Krishna, Jai Srila Prabhupada. The big GBC man, and of course Prabhupada was in his rooms, and next to his rooms, his secretary was, and his servants, they all stayed there. And so I was supposed to be the looking after the building, you know, the guest house manager, and therefore I had access to the evening. You know, he mentioned Shatadanir about the evening plate, which was very, very sought after, very sought after. When the because I had left New York to come to India. I actually ran away in the middle of the night because they wouldn't let me leave. And so then Tamal and Adi Keshava was the president. Then they came for the festival. And by that time I was kind of established in Mayapur. I was, you know, it was only a week or a month, maximum a month. And then they came, so I kind of went and I took them some cakes to try, you know, to kind of make up with them, and it was okay. There wasn't any problem. There wasn't any problem. They just didn't want me to go to Japan with Guru Kripa. Because they were trying to get me to go to Japan. Don't go to Japan with Guru Kripa. Stay here. So anyway, contrasting that with what facilities and what kind of development has taken place in Mayapur is like a huge difference. To go to the Goshala in those days, you would walk along, you know, the aisle. They call it aisle, right? Nowadays they call it the aisle. Actually, you don't even find it nowadays in Mayapur because in the fields are all sectioned off, and in between each field there's like a bund about this high, and you know, and you had to, and you would walk along those. That's how you'd have to go from the temple to the Goshala. There was actually by that time a gas. What do you call that? Like a gobar gas plant downstairs towards the back of the long building. The Lotus building. Behind, there was a tap there where I'd sometimes take bath. Maybe that's the one that Pankajangu was talking about. And Prabhupada has his garage. Pancharatna mentioned there was only one car, but actually Prabhupada's car was also.
It came later, yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I was there, it was there. There was a little garage. No one used that car. That was Prabhupada's car. I think Gargamuni bought two, and one in three, was it? Yeah. So 3 cars which looked the same color. The car's still there at the Samadhi. But that car was in the little garage, and this gobar gas plant was there, supposedly feeding the kitchen where the deities prasad was bhoga was cooked. But it never worked because no one would feed. No one would feed. At least when I was, it never worked because no one was feeding the gobar. You have to feed gobar in there every day, and it just wasn't happening. But technology-wise, I mean, ecologically wise, it was very advanced, very advanced. I think. Huh?
You did one bullock cart with gobar.
Yeah.
And then you have to mix it. And all we got was one light and one little gas.
Anyway, yeah, you were supposed to get, if it was properly fed, like Prabhu was saying, like one bullock cart of of goba every day, mixed up and fed in there, and then but they were cooking on coals, little coal fires, like a bucket, a tin bucket with mud, and it was coal. That was the deity's boga was cooked on on one of those, and I think she had a kerosene, one of those pump stoves, as I recall. Anyway, just kind of again reflecting on the kind of change that has taken place. There's good things about it, but there's also negative things about it from my point of view, my perspective. We have our big mattresses instead of the little mats. Now we're old. What to do? We need it, and that's not the negative that I was talking about. But I think the mentality, the approach, and the mentality is what we need to think about, meditate upon. The austerities that the devotees endured. We have austerities today also, but not the same kind of austerities. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that as devotees, we should try to at least internally maintain the austerity of the Dham. Don't take it lightly, but and don't expect so much facility. Just focus on service and building up and developing the Sri Mayapur project. Hare Krishna.
Another thing, but because most everyone was brahmacharis, so